Yo, 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 everybody. Professor Generikb here with another episode of Redstone Academy. Class is in session, suckers. Sit down. Stop chewing that bubble gum. Hey, so today we're going to talk about logic gates. Now, just a real quick recap. We've talked about the main parts of redstone, the dust, the repeaters, and the torches. We've talked about inputs. We've talked about outputs. Now we're going to get a little more complicated. Nothing too crazy, but we're just going to talk about logic gates. Now, logic gates are things that you have inputs and you have outputs, and the thing in the middle that says depending on what inputs you have, you get a certain output. That's a gate. So let's talk about them. The first ones I want to get off the plate are the really dumb ones that they're gates, but we never really use them per se. The first one is a NOR gate or an inverter, and all that is basically is you've got an input here, and we talked about how torches will invert a signal. So whenever this is on, the output is off. And as you can tell by the piston right there, right? Signal's off, the output's on. Hey, dumb. The next one here is an OR gate, and it is if input A or input B or both are on, then it will turn on the signal. Right? Turn that guy off. This one, turn it on. Right? And of course, it's either or, so it's an OR gate. Essentially, it's just two lines going into one line. Kinda dumb. But you will have the there we go. You will have the instance where sometimes you'll have two different lines going into one output. So I guess it's kind of useful. Now, the one thing you might run into is feedback. So if you have one signal that's on, you'll notice that not only is this signal going on to the piston, but it's also feeding back into the input. Sometimes that doesn't matter. Sometimes you want to make sure that doesn't happen. A quick and easy way is to use repeaters. Now, this is a characteristic that I did not mention when I talked about repeaters last time. Repeaters act as a diode or a one-way current. So as you can see, I've got two repeaters now that are facing into the output. If I turn one on, now the wire is powered, goes through that repeater and off to the output. But because this repeater is facing that way, no signal can go into it, right? So no signal can go into the output of a repeater. It's called a diode. Whatever. Boring. So now we're going to start getting into the good part. And this here is an AND gate. Now what an AND gate means is you have at least two inputs. We'll talk about more in a second. All of the inputs have to be on in order for the output to be on. So right now you can see if we had input A, nothing. Input B, nothing. If you turn them both on, however, they both go on. And here's how it works. So you've got the signals going into these blocks with torches on top. And then you've got a redstone dust in between them and a torch coming off of that. Now, if you recall, torches will invert whatever signal's going into them. So because the signal is off right now, it's going into this block, so that torch is on. And same thing with this one over here. This dust in between will be on if either one of these are on, which then energizes this block, which then turns the torch off, right? Now, if you turn on one guy, you can see this inverts that torch, but because this one's still on, right, the signal's off, turns the torch on, powers that, which then still keeps this guy off. You have to turn both of them on, turns off both torches, turns off this dust, and then the torch gets inverted, the signal gets inverted, and turns it on, right? AND gate, real simple. Now there is one modification here. If you ever wanted to create what's called a NAND gate, or it's an inverted AND gate, not AND, I guess. You just remove the torch and you put that right there. So now, if both signals are off, then the output will be on. And so you can turn one on, still on. So it's just the exact opposite. Both signals have to be on in order for this to turn off. Sometimes you need it. We'll talk about it in an example. Now, let's talk about multiple input AND gates. This is, sometimes you'll see some folks will take the original AND gate and they will go, all right, well, if I have these two inputs, if I want a third input, I'll take the output of this AND gate and put it in the input. Nope. This is how you do it, folks. Just like this. And it is the exact same principle as the normal 2-input AND gate. The only thing you do is you just bring all the line forward one block. So for every input that we've got, so here's a 4-input AND gate. They each go into a torch. Those torches are connected to a line of redstone in front of them, not in between. They're in front. And then you've got your output that goes into your, whatever your output is. Right here, it's a piston. So the way this works is the exact same as that over there. Turn this on. This torch goes off because it's getting powered and inverted. But you can see the signals are still on because of all these other ones. And so in order to turn it on, wank, 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 only then does it go on, right? Very useful. Again, we'll show an example here in a second. Now this is a pistonless design, and sometimes you may want to use a piston. Maybe pistons make things a little smaller, right? Here's a really good example of a piston version of an AND gate. Now this uses the theory that we talked about last episode with a with a repeater being able to push power into a block to carry on the signal. So here's our two inputs. You notice if I turn this on, the repeater lights up, but there's nothing for it to carry the signal through, right? If I turn this guy on, it pushes a block out, but there's no signal going through. You have to have them both on. So then it goes through, powers the block, which then the redstone dust goes through and lights up or energizes the output. Simple, right? And there's an even more compact version of it right here. Just kind of fly over it to show you. And there's nothing underground on these. If there were, I would show you. But this one has an inverted signal. You flip that one, right? So that would be turning that one on. Even though the output's off, remember it inverts it, and same with that guy. Easy peasy. Sometimes you need a little one-wide version of this, and so here's some examples. I'm going to show you this one first, actually, because mentally this one kind of looks like that original little 2-input one. If you think about it, here's a signal going into the first torch, so kind of like the one on the right or on the left. And then here's the input going into the second torch. So the way this one works is, here, let me turn this off. Both inputs are off right now. This torch and this torch are both powering right now, both powering this this block, which is powering, which is depowering this torch, right? So it's inverted. So this output is off. Turn this guy on. So that turns this torch off, but this torch here is still powering the dust, which is powering that block. So you have to turn both of them on, right? This is completely turned off now, and then this torch comes on because it's inverted. The piston goes up. Very, very simple, very cool. Just another version of that in case you want something different. Roughly the same size. Here is a really quick and dirty piston version of it. Tell you what, I'm going to put it back today. Here's a quick and dirty piston version of it. Pretty much exactly like what we did over here, except vertical. You've got this signal on the bottom, repeater's got nothing to push the signal through until you turn the signal up there. And that's it, and Bob's your uncle. So those are AND gates. Let's talk about some practical uses for an AND gate. Because I know it's one thing just to show you guys these, but what would you actually do with it, right? So the one that I really like using is using an AND gate as a master override switch. So pretend, this is all dirty redstone. I just wanted to show you exactly where it goes. Normally you would bury this underground. But let's say this is your door that you go into a base. You click on it. Hey, wait a minute. What's going on, right? So even though this signal is on, going into this AND gate, okay, so this is a NAND gate. And the reason I did that is I want, by default, I want these pistons to be extended so the door is closed, right? So right now, the signal goes in, but this signal is off, right? So no matter what I push on there, it ain't doing nothing. Unless I have this master control switch turned on, turns that off, then I can go through, like, just like that. This is really useful if you're inside your base and you want to make sure that no one gets in. You just sit there and flip that thing on. No one's getting in. The next one, we're going to use an example for the multiple AND gate, right? Multiple input AND gate. And this is useful for a combination lock. So I just did a really simple one here with 3 switches. On a couple of them, I inverted the signal, right? And so, I sit there and I go, what is it? Is it that guy? Aha! And then you walk on through. And again, it's just a couple of these are inverted, but you essentially want all of the signals to go on, so the torches go off. And here I just have the torch on the side. With a multiple input AND gate, you can stick that bad boy pretty much anywhere. And then that goes and powers the door. Now this is where it gets interesting. Remember how at the beginning I told you, the beginning of this series, I told you I was going to teach you the little modules of things. So this is a very simple combination lock. But it all works on inputs and outputs. So instead of having a simple lever as an input, you could use a bud switch. You could use some kind of pressure plate where you throw something on top of it. You could use a T flip-flop, an RS NOR latch, like all sorts of crazy stuff. Shooting a pressure plate or an upcoming wooden button with an arrow. We'll talk about that stuff in future episodes, but it's just to give you guys the building blocks of it. You go, oh, I know now. As long as I can build something that provides input to this little guy here, I got a combination lock. All right, here's a weird one. I'm using a repeater, and the delay on a repeater just into a normal old AND gate, and I did this to make a one-way switch. So let's say you've got this in your hallway going out of your base, right? And I think I put a bunch of, I've got a bunch of redstone in here, but let's say it's a potion of speed or swiftness, or if you're in the nether, this is what I've done. It automatically throws a potion of fire resistance on you. You'll notice as you walk through, thank you very much, it throws a redstone at me. That is because in my normal walking speed, when I walk over, this repeater provides a delay, and this is 4 ticks of delay, so 4/10 of a second, right? So by the time I'm walking over it, this is on and that's on at the same time, just long enough for this output to trigger. But if I walk over it from this side, see, it's off sync, so it never triggers the AND gate. So it's a one-way dispenser, essentially. And here's another weird one. Let us say this is, you've got your minecart track going into your base, right? Let's see if I did this right. Oh no, hold on one second. Let's say by default, I've got this guy powered. This is my master override switch, just like we did with the, with the doors. So this one's on, which means if I want to go to my base, I hit the button, I go to safety, right? And, this would be my base over here. I'm using the same staggered, delayed input, just like I'm using over there. But watch what happens here. If I turn this off, even if I run over this in the right direction, this one will never turn on. It's a third input to the AND gate, right? So when I go, and I'm like, all right, I'm on, hit the button, and I go, shwank, I'm going to go this way, maybe into a trap, fiery lava of death, right? So it's just a good way of protecting your base. Or maybe use it as a bit of a, track selector. I don't know. So that's it for the AND gates. To me, personally, guys, this is the most important logic gate in Minecraft. We will talk about flip-flops and RS NOR latches and things like that in future episodes. But really the AND gate, man, that's the beefy one. But I do want to talk about one other one, and this is called an XOR gate. And the way this one works, let me show you. You got your two inputs. It'll turn on, right? The piston will go on if one of the signals out of the two are on, but it won't be on if both of them are on. See how that works? And the way this works is, it's a little complicated, but let's check it out. Here, let me turn both of these off. It's actually a NAND gate. So you can see here, we've got the three, oh, hey, what's up there, Rain? You've got your two torches with the redstone dust in the middle, so that looks just like the NAND gate. But then, if you look at these two torches going into there, it's an AND gate. And over here is an AND gate as well. Really confusing, but let's follow through it, right? So right now there's no signals going in. These two are powered, which then depowers this torch, right? But because these are powered, it's like picture it like an AND gate with only one signal on. So this guy is still going to be off. If I turn this guy on, right? This one is still powered because this is a NAND gate, right? So the output is on, which turns that off. But because we're turning this torch off as well, this AND gate right here turns the torch on, which then turns on the output. And it's the exact same thing on the other side, right? Just like that. Output's on, turns that guy off. This also powers, turns that guy off, which means this one gets powered. If you turn them both on, plop, like that, this NAND gate is now off, which turns this torch on. So even though these are off, this guy is on, which turns off those two torches. So that is how you use a XOR gate. There is a piston version of it that is, it's roughly the same size. So no real advantage to it. I mean, it doesn't have stuff up above it, so maybe a little bit of space advantage. And the way this one works is you've got your two signals. If I turn this guy on, all it's doing is it's powering this this block right here. The repeater pulls the power out of it, which then powers this block, and this redstone dust goes off, and there's your signal. All right. If I turn this guy on, wonk, that's powering this block, depowers the torch, which then sucks this sticky piston back in. And because there's a torch right here that powers that repeater, which then powers the block, powers the redstone and turns it on. But if I turn both of them on, wonk, that just turns this torch off, so there's no signal going through. Right? Practical uses for this thing. I'm going to show you the main reason that it's used, but then I'm going to show you why, like, real redstoners, really cool people, don't use it. Here's your standard way of how you would use it. If you have a lever, here's your door. You turn it on, right? And all I've got is this is just the exact same XOR gate that we had over there with the inputs from the levers on each side of the door. So it's closed. I flip it. I go through the door. I can flip this one. It's kind of like, those three-way light switches in your house. Like you've got a switch up on the main floor and one down in your basement. Kind of like that, right? You could also use this to power drawbridges, piston bridges that come up through lava or whatever. You raise your drawbridge, you go through it, close it on the other side. So it's cool, and it works. The reason most people don't use this is because levers kind of stink. I'm going to say it. They're kind of dumb. Buttons are the way to go. And so what you'd rather have is push a button, door opens up, push another button, it closes. This is done with a T flip-flop, which we're not going to go over today, but I just wanted to show you that is a possibility because that's what we're going to talk about in the next episode. We're going to talk about pulse limiters and T flip-flops. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Again, if you have any questions at all, just leave them in the comments below. Happy to help out. Until next time, students, this is Professor Generikb, Redstone Academy. Take care. Brush your hair. I'll see you when I see ya. Peace!